Before we get into this video, I would like to thank my patrons, Harpy, Corporal Hot Pockets, and Salvatore Di Pietro. The three of you make this channel possible, and you guys are awesome. Hey y'all, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about something neat and fun, the Primaris Space Marines. Who are they? Why are they important? And are they actually better than Firstborn Astartes? One thing to note, if you would consider liking, subscribing, hitting the bell icon, and or commenting down below, I would appreciate it greatly. I have a Discord for those of you that want to hang out and chat. Patreon's a thing too. People can get stickers, mugs, the whole shebang, early access to content. That's fun. I have everything linked below in a link tree. Let's get right into it. So in order to know how the Primaris Space Marines came about, we have to go all the way back to 30k. Shortly after the Horus Heresy, Primarch Robu Guilliman met with a Magos known as Belisarius Cawl. The Primarch had one single directive: make new Space Marines. Now, this was not a simple task. You can't just make new and improved Astartes! Cawl couldn't just start from scratch, so he was given access to GNC templates and pretty much every last remaining element of the Emperor's work and notes on the Astartes program. Now, one quick note before we continue, just a little fun fact: it wasn't just the Emperor who made the Astartes. The term Adeptus Astartes was originally conceived in the Legiones Astartes project during the later years of the Unification Wars on Terra. That's a conflict we'll get to another day. The project was primarily headed by and named after Ammar Astarte. While the Emperor's vision was what drove the project, we shouldn't forget Ammar's very pivotal role. Without her work, it is very well possible that the Astartes would have taken on a very different form. So bear in mind that when I say the Emperor's work, I really mean both the Emperor and Ammar Astarte. But back to it. So really, Cawl wasn't making new Space Marines, rather he was making additions and modifications to an existing template. Improvements, more or less. And Cawl himself, for all his gloating and egotistical ramblings, will say that without the Emperor's prior work, none of what he did would have been possible. And furthermore, it would take 10,000 years for Cawl to finally complete his work. But why did Guilliman want the Primaris Space Marines in the first place when Firstborn Astartes created the traditional way, have proven to be more than effective? It's really simple. At the end of the day, the Horus Heresy was the beginning of a greater conflict, not the end, and with the Loyalist Primarchs disappearing or dying, and the issue of gene seed mutations making it more and more difficult to actually make Firstborn Astartes, the need for improvements was becoming apparent. I should note that Astartes are made from the gene seed of their Primarchs, hence why the Primarchs are called Gene Fathers. Without the Primarchs, you have to collect gene seed from fallen Astartes and redistribute it among new recruits, which can lead to complications, degradation, and mutations. By the time of Robu Guilliman's revival, well, by his own words, due to him being the, at the time, only known Loyalist Primarch alive, most of the remaining Firstborn Astartes came from his own gene seed, which was problematic. Coupling this with attrition and continuous losses, it was almost a necessity that changes to how Astartes are created would be very, very needed. While Guilliman admits that he didn't realize how far the Imperium would decay in his absence, he knew things would get bad to an extent, hence why he approached Cawl in the first place. The Primaris Space Marines would be called into action during the Indomitus Crusade with Guilliman's return as Imperial Regent. They would be ferried across the galaxy to various chapters, where they would be integrated with their more experienced Firstborn brothers. So, going back to the changes made to the Primaris Space Marines, we have to ask a simple question. What do these changes entail? So, the first thing Cawl did was he made changes to the gene seed. This wasn't an easy task, but it had to be done. The end result was simple: a modified product that would be administered to Primaris Space Marines. It is still the original gene seed, just more resilient, so to speak. Less likely to degrade or develop mutations, thus drastically extending the longevity of Primaris Astartes' gene seed. It would also be more potent and accompanied by an additional 3 augmented organs. The end result was quite a success, actually. Primaris Astartes are generally bigger, faster, and stronger than their firstborn counterparts. Their equipment is also generally changed for the better. Most prominent was the Mark X power armor, for Primaris Space Marines specifically. It is more versatile in nature, modular so as to allow for different configurations, and add-ons for whatever may be needed as well. Primaris Astartes will also use the Mark II call pattern bolt rifle, essentially a bolter fitted specifically for them, all while named after, a little certain egotistical guy named Call. Primaris Astartes will also make use of new vehicles, other new weapons, and really all of these new items are just improved versions of what the Firstborns use, but there are the occasional bits of new tech now and again. That said, there is something that we have to address here, and that is a common criticism often levied against the Primaris Space Marines. That they are just new and better Space Marines meant to sell more minis, and that is why they suck. They don't add anything to the narrative, and yeah, we're gonna address that criticism in the next segment. On the surface, it's easy to see why the Primaris Space Marines have received such a lukewarm reception in certain parts of the Warhammer community. It almost looks like the Firstborn Astartes are being treated like an old, used car model. It was useful, was cool at the time, but now it's gonna fade away and will remain popular with specific collectors. I mean, just the way GW introduced the Primaris Space Marines gave this impression. Hey guys, we're bringing back Blueberry Gilliman, and by the way, Call has been working on a bunch of new Space Marines this whole time, and these new Astartes have better armor, better augmentations, better weapons. They're bigger, stronger, faster, and they're just better. And this, of course, upset some people. Warhammer is known for having big, powerful things that are, well, just big and powerful, but at the same time, when everything is big and powerful, nothing is big and powerful. Astartes, while overpowered as hell just about anywhere else, can and have died in droves on many occasions. Part of what made the Primaris Space Marines' arrival to the fold so impactful was the dwindling number of Astartes. But that's the thing, for a lot of people, Firstborn Astartes were not just big and powerful, they had earned the title of the Emperor's Angels of Death through trials and tribulation. They are flawed, they are imperfect, and they have made many mistakes and fallen at times, but they have always gotten back on their feet and kept pushing for humanity. So for a lot of people, it's kind of like, oh, Primaris Space Marines are just better because GW says so? In other words, GW in making Primaris Space Marines have been accused of capitalizing on creating Mary Sues. The Primaris Space Marines are just better because they are, and even beforehand, they're just better Astartes. But is that really the case? Actually, no. Primaris Space Marines have been accused of being Mary Sues solely due to bad press. GW, in the end, just gave a really bad first impression. Recently, I've been going through the Avenging Sun books, and in the first installment, Dawn of Fire, we are introduced to the Primaris Astartes. In this, we got to see the perspectives of many parties, including Firstborns. Initially, a lot of Firstborn Astartes were very uneasy and even spiteful towards their new brothers. They felt replaced, used, discarded, almost kind of a direct reflection of how fans of the Firstborn Astartes reacted to GW's announcement. But one particular Firstborn, Messinius, got to help a handful of Primaris Space Marines get acclimated to the galaxy, and his perspective kind of starts to change the narrative. Yes, the Primaris Space Marines are, in a way, successors to the Firstborns, but they aren't replacements, far from it. The Firstborns are arguably more vital than ever before. When Messinius met his Primaris companions, he likened them to children learning to walk. They were big, strong, and powerful, yes. To an extent, they were more physically capable than he was, but Messinius had something they didn't: experience. He described his younger brothers as stiff, robotic, almost unthinking in combat with not enough drive or mental fortitude. So he acted as an example to them. He gave them advice, mentored them, taught them to be more fluid in combat. He was their older brother. He taught them history, introduced them to the galaxy at large, helped them find purpose, and ultimately aided in the development of their personalities. Messinius, in a way, represents the role of Firstborn Astartes in the 42nd millennium. Torchbearers, Sherpas, mentors, guides, teachers. They are the older brothers teaching their younger, less experienced siblings. They are examples, leaders, a standard for their newer counterparts to aspire to. And furthermore, the Firstborns are definitely not going away anytime soon. There are still plenty left in the galaxy, and some chapters just do things the old-fashioned way. There were instances of chapters just refusing to accept the Primaris Astartes, such as the Black Templars, but for the most part that was rare, almost non-existent. Furthermore, the Firstborns now have the opportunity to gain the enhancements afforded to Primaris Space Marines via surgery, which, while risky, is definitely worth it. So, no, the Primaris Astartes are not the new car models meant to replace the old. They're like Spartan 4s to the Spartan 2s and 3s of Halo. Yes, there are now a lot of Spartan 4s, far more than the previous generations, but they're not replacements. A Primaris Space Marine is no more likely to replace the dude that likes to go, "I got a Sicarius," than it is for a Spartan 4 to replace the Master Chief. They are strong, powerful, complement each other, and work better together. And personally, I like the Primaris Space Marines. The Avenging Sun series does a great job with them, and my favorite parts have nothing to do with Guilliman, but rather how the Primaris Space Marines interacted with Firstborns and their growth. So, yeah, that is a basic summary of Primaris Space Marines. What do you think of them? I will see you in the cosmos, friends.